you guys actually have a treat because we are the Princeton Review, your Gear Up program has allowed you to actually have some of the same resources that students all over the country have access to. So I want to say thank you to Gear Up DeSoto, for allowing the Princeton Review to be a partner of yours, where we can help prepare your students and give them the same resources that are available for all students around the country. So what I'm going to do now is share my screen, and I'm going to show you a brief PowerPoint. And the PowerPoint I'm going to tell you again, let's see here. What I'm going to do today is talk to you a little bit, what is the PSAT and how do I do that, go on the PSAT, and how do I prepare it? But first, I want to ask a question for you. Put in the chat, if you will, if you know what is the PSAT. And Nathan, I can't see the chat, so I'm going to lead on you to tell me what they're stating.
Yes, ma'am, I got you.
Tell me, what is the PSAT? Do you know what PSAT actually means? What is it? Are you getting any results yet, Nathan?
Not as of yet. Let me see. Let me just make sure that I know that we had some parents answer earlier about who they, okay, here we go. I have one that says practice SAT, precursor test for the SAT. And we might be on a little lag. Sometimes it happens when you're on Zoom. Mm-hmm. Okay, forgot what the P means, but it's the first, it's the first possible, right? It's the first possible SAT to take, pre maybe. Okay. Another response says a test that tests how students might be prepared for college.
You know what? Every single one of them, they're correct.
That is correct.
Because what it is here is the PSAT is basically a name, it's a preliminary SAT National Merit Scholarship Qualifying Test. You know, you think about PSAT, NMSQT, because most people think about, oh gosh, what is the NMSQT? For this purpose, we're only going to really talk about the preliminary SAT. And like you stated, it is a test to actually prepare you for the SAT. I'm having difficulty with this. So when you're preparing for the PSAT, how many of your students on here actually took the PSAT 9, had students that took PSAT 9? Okay, I see someone responding.
Yeah, I see. Yeah, Lauren. Okay.
Lauren. Okay, and Lauren, tell me a little bit. How was it? Was it an extremely long test for you? What did you find was any challenges with taking the test? Did you have? It looked
like that's her mom. Her mom, okay. Or her, her father. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yeah,
any challenges taking?
Yeah, she said Lauren's not on at the moment.
Okay. Any challenges taking the PSAT 9? Well, I would tell you, as you mentioned, the PSAT is basically a preliminary SAT. It's a way for you to prepare for the big test. But what the PSAT 10, which we're focusing on today or tonight, is it measures what you're learning in school and it determines if you're on track, and it helps to open doors for you to prepare. Now, what does that actually mean? There is a benefit for you to take the PSAT seriously. And the reason why, I'll tell you, this PowerPoint here is, there you go. The reason why is very, very important for you to take it because it helps you as a benefit. It helps you to practice. It helps you build your skills over time. It helps open doors to college, and I'll tell you how. And it helps to connect you to scholarships and opportunities. Imagine this. How many of you are actually play sports? How many of your students here actually play sport? Football, basketball, soccer, etc. How many of you actually play sports? And if you do, tell me the sport that you play.
And feel free to come off mute, guys, if you'd like to say. So Miss Bordeaux, her son Noah plays basketball.
Okay.
And then we have a football player.
Okay. Now, let me ask you for the athletes here. Would you go into a state game without practice? Would you actually go into, would DeSoto ISD play Duncanville without practice?
We should have practiced a little bit more.
Yes. So just think about this. I always like to use the analogy that the PSAT is basically the practice, and the SAT is the Super Bowl or the national championship game. So taking the PSAT for you is like practice. If you notice in practice, you have certain skills that you're learning as an athlete. You have certain drills that you have to do. Even with cheerleading, even if you're in your math debate course, you have to practice in order to hone in your skills. So look at the PSAT as a way for you as a student and the parent to identify your skills, where you actually can, where you need to actually work on. So PSAT 10 will allow you the opportunity to practice, allows you the opportunity to hone into a few skills that you find that your student needs to practice on. But then we're going to hit on how it opens doors and it connects students to scholarship opportunities. Okay. And of course, it helps you with providing AP. What are some of the common mistakes that you found that from your child and parents, common mistakes that students have when they're taking a college exam, admissions exam, such as the PSAT? Put in your chat. What do you find that some of your common mistakes? I'll let you know. Some of them are. Go ahead.
I was going to say no preparation.
Exactly. No prep. No prep. Or if you took the test and you prepped, the question is, what did you do with those results that you received? Some of the common mistakes that we find, not only in students that are in 10th grade and 9th grade, we find these are common mistakes from the Princeton Review for students who are taking the MCAT or students who are taking the LSAT, that oftentimes we find that students try to answer questions too quickly. They have careless answers. They do the work in their head, and a lot of them misread the problem, or they just flat out don't understand what to do. Because in reality, when your student is taking the PSAT, again, it's a preliminary practice for the SAT, it is totally different than the test that they will actually take in school. It is a very different kind of test when they're in school. Now, one of the things that we always like to do is to really stress the practice because it helps with the fear. So I'm going to go back to the football analogy or the athlete analogy. For our athletes out there, how stressed are you if you know that you practice for your game of the year? Are you really stressed? Nothing in the chat? Now imagine if you have the game of the year. This is the particular game where you have scouts coming to your game to view you actually practice and see you play. And you did not practice at all for the last 2 weeks. Would you be stressed? Nathan, if you can tell me what some of the chat they're saying in the chat.
Yes, you would definitely be stressed.
Thank you, thank you. Well, that's the same thing here. Being prepared helps to eliminate a lot of the stress, because students, what happens is that some of our students, when they go into these high stakes tests, they realize that it's very different. And what's very different about it is the format. The format is very different than what students might have witnessed before. So your students are taking the PSAT 10, which is before they take the PSAT and NMSQT. But imagine this, your student is actually taking 47 questions, 60 minutes in reading, just 60 minutes in reading, 35 minutes in writing and language, 70 minutes in math, and with a total of 165 minutes of taking a test. That's a lot of stamina. That takes a lot for a student to not get frustrated and understand this, build their stamina up. That's why we have things in place to help your students actually prepare for it. The great news about this with the PSAT 10 is that, think about it, your students have another time to take the PSAT in NMSQT before they take the real test, which is the actual Super Bowl, or in this case, your national championship. But I want to ask you another question, because some of our students will say, well, oh gosh, should I take the test? I don't want to know if I should get very serious about it. Well, this test here is scored a little differently than you will find on your SAT. And so the scoring on the PSAT is scored in a different way, where it's a total score between 320 and 1520. So your test score is a sum of the two sections, and they take all of those numbers together. What happens is that your students can then see how their score aligns to the SAT and ACT. So I will encourage you, when your students actually take the test, the PSAT 10, you will get from the College Board a score report. I encourage you to actually get that score report and go and review the scores with your student. Not what they got correct, but what are the other ways that they can actually earn more points? Because that's what's going to help your students prepare. Whenever your student takes a high stakes test, PSAT 9, PSAT 10, PST, NMSQT, always look at those score reports. Take the time to look at the score reports and review how they can increase their scores. Okay. When you receive your score reports, you're going to have it actually written out in your reading test, in your writing language test for your students, and they'll actually give you feedback on what they received right, what was, and the different ways that they can increase their test. Just a thought in the chat, or you can get off the mute. How many of those students who actually took the PSAT 9, did you review your score reports, and what was the result? Okay.
Nothing in the chat thus far.
Nothing in the chat thus far. And Nathan, this might be a point where I'm not sure if Gear Up allows for a what's next. What is next after they take the PSAT? What happens for them, their students? What do they have with their score? Again, another way to get your students to prepare for the big Super Bowl. So now I want to ask about preparation. Preparation is key, and I believe it was Mr. Buford that stated that if he did not prepare for the game, that there would be some type of anxiety. Well, that's the same as true for students, because what we know to be true about taking one of these high stakes tests, it does not measure your IQ. It does not measure any of those things. What it really measures, quite honestly, is how well you're able to take a test. How many of you there in the chat, if you can tell me if you have test anxiety? I had test anxiety just taking the driver's license test, just anything simple. Any of you have test anxiety? You put in the chat, yes or no?
We got, I usually don't get test anxiety so far. From Ms. Tuma, not really. Yes. Yes, with an exclamation point.
Exclamation point. So what is, with the ones who said yes, tell me, what is your big stressor? Is it time? Is it reading the question? Tell me, what provides you with the strongest stress for you?
Personally, for me, it's a matter of overthinking. Some kind of way I can always rationalize an answer unless I know definitively what the actual answer is. I can pretty much get confused easily.
Thank you for that. And you're in the 10th grade, is that correct?
No, I'm a parent, actually. My daughter's at a tennis. Yeah, she's at a tennis match. I was just thinking back to when I was in school, and when you said the driver's license test, that was one of the tests that I failed, like, I think twice. I don't want to say twice, but I think it was twice, just because I was like just overthinking.
And you know what? And that's very common for students to overthink because, and I can't see your name. What is your name again?
Melanie King.
Thank you, Ms. King. Ms. King, that is one of the things that's not uncommon, the testing, because it's in your head. And what oftentimes with students, they say, we are trained from school that there's only one way to find an answer, which is you look for the correct answer, right? Well, some of the strategies that we teach is that sometimes it is eliminating the ones that are wrong, finding the questions that are wrong.
Tanya,
So,
it's interesting that you say that, because in the chat, I see here from Natalie Hamilton, it says multiple choice with answers that seem right.
absolutely. That is one of the most common ways that students get really tripped up in their head, because if you think about it, when they're taking the STAR exam, one, they're used to a certain way that the questions are written, right? And there's a certain amount of time, and they're usually a method just only pick the right one. And the way that we talk about test strategies is a little different for students, because it helps students think about it in a different way. So Ms. King, when you get to a question, do you normally look at the answer first, or do you look at the question?
I look at the question. I read the question first.
Mm-hmm. And, you know, if there was a reading passage, which your students will find, there are some reading passages on there. Imagine a reading passage that's about 4 different paragraphs about the Constitution. That's a long passage to read.
Yes.
Would you read the passage first or read the question first?
I think I'm going to go with the question then, in that case.
There you go. There you go. There you go. But you know, it's interesting. Sometimes our students are taught, which is correct, they're taught to read the passage first. And the great news is that we have different ways to help you prep for your students. And I'm going to show you that at the end, the different ways where we're actually going to prep your students. So you're correct. The anxiety is there. Any other anxiety there that Nathan, that you find there for students, that I have time and pace, reading the questions, anything else stands out?
Worried about not studying enough or missing important information that will come up.
Yes, that is very, very true. A lot of times realizing that what those tests actually do, they actually really take everything that you learned in high school and they try to test you on those skills that you learned. But understand this, I always tell students this, and this is so true to know for any college that your students go to. It does not necessarily test your IQ. It tests your ability to take the test. So once students understand that the test is there to test your ability to take the test, right? The other piece to this is that I always tell students, even my nieces and nephews, when they were stressing about the SAT, because that is the ultimate goal, I told them, and it's so true, when you get in college, no one's going to ask you about your SAT score. How many of you, if you parents in this chat can tell me, once you got into the school of your choice, how many of your peers asked you about your SAT score?
None. None.
No one.
No one asked you about it. It's a matter of getting in. We're getting in. No one asked. And I think we have to put that in our students' heads so they understand. It helps eliminate some of that stress. Like, you can calm down a little bit. You're going to tackle this test. You're tackling the test, not necessarily always the content. Now, the content is very important, obviously, but it's the strategies that you learn along the way to actually take the test. So in this case, I want to give you an idea with the pacing. Pacing is a really big piece for our students. So how many of you're in the chat, if you can put on there and tell me, how many of you actually find yourself when you take the test that you run out of time and you didn't answer all the questions? In the chat, tell me, oh my gosh, I ran out of time. I didn't answer all the questions.
On the first few tests, and learn the strategy.
Anyone else say, oh my gosh, I ran out of time and it brought some anxiety for me because I ran out of time and I had 10 questions that I did not answer?
I have so far rarely. I have one who said yes, that has happened sometimes. So yeah, we have some random, some different opinions and different answers, but it looks like that majority have said, yeah, this has happened before.
Yes, I know it's happened for me as well, where I wish that I've had this opportunity to be able to, these strategies, when I took the test, the SAT, I won't tell you how many years ago, but when I actually took the SAT, but one of the strategies that we teach is the strategy of pacing. So if you can imagine the story of the tortoise and the hare, right? I'm not sure if most of our students understand the story of the tortoise and the hare, but if you can imagine taking the test, and you have 58 attempts, and you go in and you just go through all of them. You just go in and answer all the questions. But with answering all the questions and not taking your time and really understanding the question and understanding the question, you took the, you answered all 58 of them, but you got 26 correct and 32 incorrect, right? So now the tortoise is taking her time. She's reading the questions. She's making sure that she gets as many correct as possible. And she's trying to find out just as many as she can get as correct. So she takes her time and she does 30 correct. Then guess what? Guess what she does for the other 20? Do you guys remember the strategy, the letter of the day? Yes, no, chat? I remember when I was in school, we used to call it Christmas tree, which was not the right answer. It is that letter of the day. What that means is that your students in this strategy, we show your students and we teach them that the difference between the tortoise and the hare. With the hare runs through all the questions because they're trying to beat the clock. So they're trying to answer as many questions as they can in that time allotted. However, the tortoise will answer as many as they can correct. As many as they can correct. And when the time runs out for them, what they will then do is pick their letter of the day. So just think about it. You have four answer choices. You pick one particular letter of the day, and that letter is the letter that you will pick for those main questions. And you have at least a 25% chance of getting those correct. And guess what? Just from doing that letter of the day, you have increased your scores. Those are the type of the strategies that we're going to teach your students to learn how to take the test. Now, that does not negate the fact that your students had to be able to get those 30 correct, because they have to understand the concept and have those concepts and skills in order to answer those 30 questions correctly. Questions on that? How many of my parents wish they had known that when they were in school, and they probably would have increased their SAT score?
I think, Tanya, one of the biggest things that I did not realize when I was taking the exam is that the goal is not to answer all the questions, like you said, and it is not to get everything right, because with the SAT, the way that the scoring is done is that you're not scored off of your right answers. So it's just knowing what the strategy is. And I think that if our students understood what the strategies for the ACT and the SAT are, then I think we will see dramatic scores from all of our students. And I'm hoping that's what we will be able to teach them.
You will be able to have scores, because I'm going to challenge every parent here today. Once I get to the end of this presentation, you have your school district Gear Up has invested something that's very unique for your students. And I want to make sure that all of you, because your students right now, if they're in the 9th grade, 10th grade, they should be prepping for the SAT now. And I'm going to show you how your students can actually be prepping for it now. Most of our students, I want to ask, do any of you understand what the National Merit Scholarship Qualifying Test? That is the PSAT NMSQT that your students take in the 11th grade. And it is a way for students to be identified as a National Merit finalist, National Merit Scholar. But I have a question. That's a huge deal for districts. How much of a scholarship is the scholarship for the National Merit Scholar? If you want to put that in the chat. How much does a student receive?
Isn't it full ride?
You did, nope, not a full ride, not a full ride. What is the amount of the scholarship? I can feel that someone right now is Googling. I can feel someone's Googling it.
Natalie says 50,000.
Nope.
2,000 from Brittany.
Brittany is almost close. She missed it by $2,500. But again, that is $2,500. However, that name National Merit Scholar is something that will identify other scholarships for your students. So, and I say that to say that a lot of times when our students start looking at national merit scholarships and say, oh gosh, I want to be a finalist, which is a great feat in itself because it says that you prepared for the test. But I also want to let you know that we have to be very careful sometimes that we let all of our students know what is the end game here. And even if you're not a national merit scholar, you may not necessarily have the score that you wanted to receive on on the test. You still have opportunities for other scholarships that could be worth more than $2,500, okay? So a National Merit Scholar is definitely something that you want your students to strive for, that we want to have as many as possible in our district. But the good thing about taking the PSAT is that you always have your ability to have more scholarships. So that is really when your students take the test and they take the SAT, PSAT, PSAT 10, someone is always looking at their scores for scholarships, okay? Any questions about that before I tell you now how do your students prepare? Can any of your parents and students tell me what are you doing right now to prepare for the PSAT 10? What are you doing now?
Attending this meeting.
That's a good one. Was that Rod Weaver?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so we understand that Mr. Weaver is attending this meeting, and that's how he's preparing. Does anyone else tell me how are you preparing your student to take the PSAT 10? And it's okay if you're like, I haven't prepared for it.
We have SAT Tutor, focusing in class.
Okay, yep. Focusing in class. I'm going to skip over this part because I want to get to the meat of it. I want to be very conscious of our time. Okay. They're preparing for the time. Okay. Anyone else? How are you preparing?
We have Saturday sessions.
Saturday sessions. Okay, great. Great Saturday sessions and Saturday sessions. Anything else? I still haven't heard the really big thing that all of you have right now that you can use.
SAT books.
Okay, great. SAT books. If they're Princeton review books, you can always go on the back. There is a website there where you can upload your answers, and then it will give you additional prep. Okay. How many of you are saying that going to school, that you want your school to actually help you prepare for your students? Going to school content. Okay. Well, before I do that, before I show you the two things that Gear Up is actually providing you for prep for your students. And Mr. Weaver, Rod Weaver, I am going to pick on you because you've been very vocal, and thank you for that. But okay. Because our end goal here is what? Our end goal for our students, what is your end goal for your students as you're preparing them? What is the end goal?
College admission.
Exactly. And college admissions. You want them to get in the school of their choice. You want them to be able to actually get as many scholarships as possible, right, Mr. Weaver? You want them to get as many scholarships as possible.
That's correct.
So in order to do that, again, everyone, that's the 31 participants that are on this webinar, you're actually doing a good step because you're getting yourself prepared now on how to get them at the end game, which is getting into the college of their choice and getting to the college of their choice with actually as many scholarships as possible. But if your end game is this is one of the things I want you to always keep in mind. Mr. Weaver, does the admissions test, PSAT or SAT, does it measure your intelligence?
No, it does not.
Okay, you got that right. Does it help you with, and again, the end game, SAT, again, this PSAT that we're taking is a preparation now for them to take the Super Bowl. So the PSAT 8, 9, 10, PSAT, and 11th grade is preparing them to take the SAT, which is Super Bowl. Can it be used, the score on their SAT be used to award aid, financial aid?
That is true.
Okay, all righty. Does the score on their SAT reflect their GPA in high school?
Not at all.
Okay. I can tell you wouldn't need any Princeton review prep. Does it predict your college GPA?
Now that's a point of argument. Some folks say they use it and determine that a low score determines that you probably won't have a good GPA. So that one, what do you think? Is it true or false? It's false. Yeah, I agree it's false, but they try to tell you it will predict, but it doesn't. Yep.
Well,
you can fake any score. You can fake any score.
Right.
And I would say it's a predictor if your students are very focused and they're not having fun.
Right.
In college. Okay. But the thing about it, and this is where DeSoto Gear Up is really great. It's true. Absolutely. And they should prepare for it. So that's the great thing. Now, how are they going to prepare for it? This is the question that I have for you. And Nathan, I'm going to mention 2 of the resources that you all are providing for your students.
Yes, ma'am.
And the first one is that for your 10th grade students that are in world history, your 10th grade students, the Princeton Review will have a 15-hour course, their PSAT fundamentals course embedded in your world history classes. So we should begin in a few weeks. So one of the strategies I just taught you about, pacing, we will teach your students some other different other strategies. But for our 10th grade students, they will have a Princeton Review instructor that will come to them virtually in their world history class. And we will be in there providing them instruction, 15 hours of instruction leading up to the test in March. That's a great news, because that's an investment that your Gear Up is investing in your students to make sure that they have access to the best and that they are prepared. So imagine if they're now prepared to take this or PSAT 10, imagine how well prepared your students will be once they take the SAT. Any questions on that?
And we will, ladies and gentlemen, you will be receiving some more information from us in regards to the prep, sign up and all of those types of things, because we want to make sure that our parents have everything necessary to know and tell your kids that they are taking this prep and that they are in it. Okay, so you will be receiving that information.
Absolutely. And again, it's a Princeton Review instructor that will meet with your student virtually. And I preface that by stating to you, and it's an investment it's a huge investment, because how many of your students, if you can put in the chat, I noticed that some of you mentioned that you actually have some tutoring on the weekends. Again, it's the same process where we have the same tutors to come in and teach strategies. The other one, which I want to make sure that every single one of you take a note of this. If you can put in your chat, yes or no, has your student used Tutor.com? If you can put in your chat, I know Mr. Weaver, you're on your phone, yes or no, just put in your chat, have you used Tutor.com?
Not yet.
So we have a lot of no's. I've never used it. No.
Okay.
Not yet.
Okay. Let me ask you this. Do you know what it is? Yes or no?
Mute button go, yes.
I've heard of it. Yeah. Yes.
Heard of it.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
You've heard of it. Okay. Awesome. So all of your students, and this Nathan will actually follow up with you on this. All of your students should have received the link, obviously here to, this is Tutor.com for Next Generation DeSoto ISD. Their username, I believe that is their student ID, and their password is their birth date. Well, let me share with you what it is. Let me get out of this screen here.
While you're finding that, Tanya, going to that site, parents, your students are used to Tutor.com. We introduced this to them in their 8th grade year. So they have access. They, like she said, utilize their student ID number as well as their date of birth to be able to log in. So everyone has it already.
So right now you find that it is exactly what it says, Tutor.com, where students have access to a tutor right now. So your students, if they're struggling right now, or you have students that are like, I am right now doing homework and I need some help with my math, my calculus homework. I'm going to show that to you in just a second, but I want to stay on the theme of prepping your students. Can you see on your screen where it says Next Generation Europe Tutor.com?
Yes.
Yes or no? Okay, great. Yes. If you notice here where it says prep for the SAT, ACT, this is where your student right now have access to prepping for the SAT. At this point right now, your students can log in and click on here. They can prep for the SAT or the ACT. Remember, we said that PSAT is a preliminary SAT. So how was the best way to prepare for the PSAT? Is prep for the SAT. So your students right now, they can log in and they have access to this. They will have access to prep for different practice tests. They'll get their score reports and they'll have videos and drills right now. They can do this immediately where they can actually come on here and they can begin prepping for the SAT right now. They can put in their test date and then it will tell them they can go into their practice test. It will show their coursework. They will have different lessons and drills that your students, this is available for your students right now. I'm going to pause there and I want to hear how many of my parents are saying, I didn't know. Questions about what your students have right now. How many, if you're going to pledge that by the time we get off the phone between now and tomorrow, that you will have your students log on to Tutor.com and begin their prep right now on Tutor.com? Can you put a yes, no in there in your chat for me if you will pledge that you'll have your student actually go on to Tutor.com?
All right, we have some yeses flying in.
Okay.
Got it done.
I like that, done. Yes. Mr. Buford, I haven't heard from you.
Where are you, Marquise?
So I want to prep that your students are going to go in here and take SAT and ACT.
No, I type yes. I type yes in there for sure already.
Alrighty. So now let me go to another question for our parents. What is a subject that your child right now has a challenge right now that they're coming to you? Oh, mom, dad, I'm having a challenge with my algebra 1, algebra 2, or world history. Can you put the name of the subject in their chat that your student actually has challenges right now? They're coming to you and say, I'm struggling in this class.
Okay, so we have math so far.
Uh-huh.
Chemistry.
Okay.
Algebra 1.
Okay.
This is Algebra 1. Tutor.com. I love Tutor.com.
Yes. Okay. So, okay. I see what other ones. I can only see the number coming in, but what are the other ones?
World history, geometry.
Okay. So for those parents and students that wrote that on there, what are they doing to help? What are they doing to help their students? When a student come to them and say, I'm having a challenge with this particular course, mom, dad, the guardian, what are you doing? How are you helping your student? And that's okay if you say, I don't know.
Do you want a real answer?
I do, Mr. Buford. Yes, you may give me a real answer, Mr. Buford.
I actually have to, go through the text myself with them.
Okay, right. That's a great, honest answer. That's a very common answer, actually, Mr. Buford. Anyone else?
That's the same. I have to do self-tutoring initially for the things I do remember.
You have to tutor yourself before you actually tutor your child. I got that. Right. Okay. That's prepping. You're prepping. Okay. Anyone else in the chat said anything else, Nathan?
Yes. We have tell them to try their best. Well, hold on. Try their best and not stress so hard. Student does great in class, however, not so great when it comes to the test.
Gotcha.
Parents help, teacher does not seem to be engaged.
Gotcha.
Yes.
Well, this is what you have at your fingertips right now. And I would tell you, my parents, you're probably going to say, I didn't know. I would have saved so much time going onto YouTube or reading, trying to figure this out. Your students right now, they go onto this website, they can connect to any particular subject. I noticed someone said math, Algebra 1. All you have to do, if your child is on Snapchat, TikTok, Facebook, I don't know the other ones, they can get onto Tutor.com, and you can get onto Tutor.com because you were able to get on Zoom. All you have to do, your student, they can select the subject that they're working with, math, select their subject, they're working in Algebra 1. I'm in the 10th grade or 9th grade. They can chat with the tutor or chat in voice. Most of our high school students only want to chat. They ask their question here, and within 2 minutes or less, they can connect with the tutor. It's that simple. Someone said, I think it was chemistry or physics. Someone said, I think it's chemistry. Their students are working in chemistry. They put their grade level in here and ask the question, what are they having challenges with? And they connect. It is that simple. It's that simple to connect with someone 24/7. And if you want, this actually can be interfaced in Spanish so that students and parents who feel more comfortable with the Spanish interface. Your students, again, you have the prep on here for your students. How many of your students did you find they just don't like to write? They're working and writing, and they just don't like to write at all. They don't like doing it. They hate to write essays. Any of your students put in the chat yes or no? Well, guess what? This is what I'm going to tell you. Let your students know that most of their college career is going to be writing. They're going to spend a great amount of time actually writing. And as well as when they start applying for scholarships in their college essays, they will do a ton of writing. So here for your students, they can drop off an essay and get a review within 12 hours. They can put in their grade level, drop in their essay, and then we'll give them a review within 12 hours. Is that simple? Is that simple for them to connect to a tutor? All of this is
Tanya, we do have in the chat where Chelsea says, I wish I had this when I was in school. Interesting, real two parents, in the event any of you guys are in grad school and you have papers that are due, same feature, because your student has access, guess what? You have access. So you can log in with their information, drop your essay off and go ahead and have the tutor to look over your stuff as well. But the beautiful thing about it too is that, and if the student has a question that is too long, meaning that, it's a lot of typing they have to do, it does have a feature where they can upload whatever the teacher has given them. So if it's a worksheet, if it's a page number from a book, they can take a picture with their phone and they can actually attach that file and upload it so that the tutor will actually be able to see what they see. And it's a great feature that the students can utilize as well.
Absolutely. And I know we will have some of our parents, I love it because the 29 parents that we have on here, I'm sure they're going to push some of our students for AP. We have AP resources on here for students who are taking AP, videos for your students for AP. And I believe there were 2 parents on there who mentioned that they like to prep before they actually tutor themselves before they actually work with their child. Well, here you will have other videos where your students can come in and they can watch videos as well. I don't think this is on. I don't think you can hear it. Let's see here. Yeah, no, but don't have it where you can hear it. But there are videos on here where your parent, as a parent, you can also have access and your students can access for additional skills. So I want to make sure that you know that all of this is available for you right now to prep for your students. So as I end, what I want to say, now I want to know, did I teach you something today that you did not know? Let me stop sharing here for a second here.
Yeah, you did an awesome job.
Well, thank you.
Awesome job.
I tell you, I love that Gear Up. How do I stop sharing this here? Okay, there we go. Stop sharing. There we go. I love the fact that Gear Up is providing all these resources for your students. So think about it. Your student they're taking a PSAT class course in their 10th grade world history class. And right now you have access to a tutor right now for your students. So you don't have to struggle, you know, helping your students. I mean, it's right there for you. So you're welcome. You're welcome there. So can you put in the chat what you've taken back to your students, what you're going to, yep, that's it. Your login logistics there. If you can tell me, you can put in the chat what you learned today, a little bit about PSAT, the seriousness of them taking their courses, or just a thank you to Gear Up for actually having these resources for you guys.
Gotcha. We have some thank yous and
yes.
Yes.
What I said was that that's right, Jordan. Ability to use tutor.com now, exactly, use it now. So the tutor.com is available for the Gear Up cohort, was those are 9th and 10th graders. Is that correct, Nathan?
That is correct, yes ma'am.
So all your 9th and 10th graders have access to tutor.com. Again, you students can begin prep for SAT right now, and they can get a tutor for any class that they're struggling in right now, as well as your 10th graders will actually have a PSAT course embedded in their world history class.
Also, there is an app. You know, you heard the saying, there's an app for that. So if the students don't have access to a computer, which they should, because we provided them with laptops. So hopefully all of your students have received their laptops at this point. But if they are on the road or something and they don't have their laptop, then there is a tutor.com app. So they will be able to go on their phones, and same service is just going to be a little smaller because it's on the phone. Also, we are going to be doing push-ins into the world history classes to do an overview of tutor.com, just to refresh the students, to let them know that they still have access to it. And you may be asking why world history, why are we pushing world history? It's because it's not a tested subject. So your Englishes, your math, they have, you know, STAR and things of that sort. So we typically utilize a subject where there's not a test so that we can push in. And plus the teachers love when we come in because we're always offering something to help their students in their class. So we will be doing that. So hopefully your students will come home and let you know, those Gear Up people, I saw them today and they told me something.
And Nathan, if they're having trouble logging in, what do they do if they cannot log in?
So I did address some of that in the chat. If your student is new to the district, they should have been uploaded into tutor.com. If they have not, then what I will do is that I will have, his name is Buddy, who works for our district. He is our database guru, and he has everyone's information from our system and teams. And so he'll be able to take a roster and upload every sophomore, every freshman into tutor.com, and then we'll make sure that they are in there. So for any reason, if you have any issues, by all means, please send me an email and I will do my best to try to remedy that situation the same day. So my email address is simple as nathan.jenkins@desotoisd.org. And I'll put that in the chat for you as well.
Yes. And lastly, when it comes to the PSAT, tell your students to relax, take in as many strategies as they can during their class. And with tutor.com, relax, pace themselves, and just understand that the end game, they're practicing for the Super Bowl, which is the SAT. So let them know to take it seriously, to practice, as one parent said, do their best, and understand that this is a practice, but what they do with those results, once they receive the PSAT, then they can go back and hone those skills. No different than an athlete, you know, you're working on your pacing and your stance, etc. So
listen, the time is 7:25, and so Miss Tanya was great. And so I learned a long time ago, you don't have to be eternal to be relevant. So that means that we are going to be getting out on time. However, I do need, if you would please, every parent, would you please go to the link that I provided in the chat and do our sign-up sheet. And the reason why we do this is because everything that we do, we need to make sure that we track that and that we utilize data. And so we'll know whether or not this particular session was informative, whether or not we need to do it again, things of that sort. So if you would, please make sure that you go, and I'm going to drop it back into the chat. so that you can go in. It's just about 3 questions asking you for your first name, your last name, and your student's name. That way we can go ahead and get that information in there. And let me drop that. Does anyone have any other questions that they would like to ask Tanya before we let her go and before we end our session? Or if you have any questions for Gear Up, please feel free to ask those questions.
And I just have as they say sometimes, and I have a charge here. They would say, every parent on here, go on Tutor.com at least once between now and Friday.
Hold on, what time is it?
Thank you, Ms. Brittany Wright. We do appreciate you for coming in. All of our parents, we do thank you for taking time. I'm pretty sure you guys worked in today and then to come on at 6:30. We started on time, and so we're going to leave on time. And we thank God for everything that we've been able to do on today. So with that being said, Tanya, any final words for us? Anything that you would like to say to our people?
Thank you for the opportunity. And I love Gear Up. I love Gear Up. I love what they're doing and how they're providing these resources for your students. Just make sure they use them. Use the resources that's right here with you. And for those parents who had to study before they actually help their student, now you know a resource.
And last thing too, every sophomore, again, is taking the PSAT 10 in March, and every sophomore will be in the 15-week prep session that is being offered by Princeton Review in their world history classes. So there's no sign up for it. So the teachers know that at a certain time in that class, then the tutor will come on and they will do that prep session for the PSAT 10. So again, if anyone has any questions or if you need anything, please feel free to send me an email and I will do my best to get that back to you. But on behalf of Next Generation Gear Up, we want to appreciate everyone for coming on and taking time. And until the next time, we're going to have another parent meeting in October. And I believe it's going to be charting your course is what it's going to be titled. And that's going to be with the Texas Workforce Commission, because they're going to be giving resources on getting your students internships as early as their 9th and 10th grade year, because it's going to be important for them going forward. And they're just going to give a lot of resources when it comes to careers and things like that. We are college, career, and military readiness. So we don't just focus right on college, but we also focus in on careers as well. So TWC will be in the building with us in October. So more to come, and the parent newsletter you will see the next couple of days.
Nathan.
Yes, sir.
Quick question. Are you guys going to share the PowerPoint with us, or?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So Ms. Tanya has agreed to send that to us. And so when I get it, I will make sure that I send that out tomorrow to you guys. And I also will send out the parent newsletter on tomorrow as well. So we'll get it.
Thank you.
Yeah,
thank you both.
All right. Well, thank you again, guys, for showing up. And again, until we meet again, be blessed, be safe, and we will see you next time. Thank you so much.
Bye.